Good YouTube, it's your boy R&R back with another video, man. So today, man, we're gonna be talking about. I want to talk about two things today, man. So the first thing I want to talk about is trauma. So on this journey, man, when you on the street, when you're doing what you need to be doing, when you're disciplining yourself, if you've had any past trauma, which I feel like we all have certain maybe past trauma that we haven't dealt with. If you have any past trauma, that trauma will start to come up to the light. Like it'll start to come up in your thoughts, and you'll have to work through this trauma to better yourself. You know, this journey, it's not just about self-improving with going to the gym, making money. It's also about self-improving yourself from the inside out. So any trauma that you've like dealt with or had, that starts to come to the light. And you start to know when you need to work on your trauma and work on certain things. So it's like, if you went through like a bad experience, or say like you had like an embarrassing experience as a kid, you know, that can still carry over into your adult life. You know what I'm saying? And not only that, but it can affect your adult life. It can affect your subconscious. Because you remember how I said our subconscious is our heart. And our subconscious is based on repetition and patterns that we've learned ever since a kid. So if we have certain little childhood traumas in there, in our subconscious, then it's kind of going to affect our adulthood until we deal with that. You know, we have to deal with that trauma personally. You know what I'm saying? I would just go to a quiet place. You know, if you have a quiet place you can go to when you start thinking about certain traumas, or when you start just thinking about certain things, when you start thinking about the past, I would just go to a quiet place and I would just process what I'm thinking about and what I'm feeling, because that's going to help you better yourself as a person. It's going to clear up a lot more. It's going to clear out a lot more clutter, let's say, in your heart, or not in your heart, but in your body, period. Because, you know, our body is spiritual. Our body is energy. So everything, all the thoughts we have, all the experiences we have, all of that carries energy. You know what I'm saying? So once you go through trauma and you clear it out, now your body has more energy and it's more freed up. Let's say then if you didn't go through your trauma and you just ignored it, you're just going to allow it to get bigger. And that's kind of like where our shadow comes in, because our shadow is anything that we repress, any ideas or thoughts that we repress, that we don't say, that we don't take care of, or that we don't anything that about ourselves that we don't feel like we like, we just repress it, and it becomes a part of our shadow. And our shadow is actually a strength and a source of power, but it takes a lot of work to go through the trauma and the shadow work to get to being a more lighter being and carrying less weight on yourself. Because that's all it is. Doing shadow work is just clearing out space inside of yourself, just like a computer. When you delete files that you don't need, you clearing out that space. That's basically what you're doing. You're clearing up space to help yourself become a better person. You know what I'm saying? And not only are you going to become a better person, you'll become a better human being, because now you have less weight to carry. So now, with you having less weight to carry, you can help somebody else, or you integrating your shadow, what you don't like about yourself, what you feel like is bad, with you integrating that part into you, then you better yourself and you can better others around you as well. But it's always so important to keep God in the midst of it. You know, always pray to God, always ask God for help, ask God for strength, because going through trauma is not easy, you know, and not everybody can handle going through their own trauma. You know, that's why we have these medical facilities, these rehabilitation centers, because not everybody is capable of handling their trauma alone. And I know this is kind of far from what I usually teach, because I usually teach about going to the gym, making money, things like that, or reading books and things like that. But mental health is an important part of being on this journey, because your mental can take a huge hit. You know, when you've been on the street for so long, you know, you can, you, you can, it's possible for you to go insane. And I'm not saying like everybody's journey is going to be the same, but I'm just saying when you're on a journey, your mind is in a different place than what it's been in, is what I'm saying. So you have to kind of get comfortable with where your mind is and don't leave yourself behind. Make sure yourself is always coming forward, and make sure you always remember your name, like, because you can get so deep in a journey where you forget everything. And I don't want y'all to get to that point where you start forgetting like everything about family members, about your name, and stuff like that. I want you to always know who you are as a person. Never get lost in the journey, but never let the journey control you. Control the journey. So never leave yourself behind as who you are as a person, who you really are. Because when you're on a deep journey, you start stepping into a different person, different people. You know what I'm saying? And it can become difficult sometimes to remember certain things unless you are working doing certain things like writing, journaling. That's why I say you should read books, because reading books is a great way to stimulate your mind and not make you forget just certain things that you need to be knowing to just carry out your daily life. You know, you won't start forgetting things as easily because you have a lot of books in your mind already, in your heart. That's why I say read a lot of books, because when you read a lot of books, you just putting the books in your subconscious. You putting all those books in your subconscious. And when you really need the information to go back and look at it, you can just remember it just because you've read the book. You already know like what's in it. And you might not have to even go back to the book. You might just remember it. Or sometimes you may have to go back to the book. But either way, you're training up yourself to become a better individual, you know, and that's all I'm saying is just don't forget who you are as a person on the journey. Don't forget yourself.